Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Cedarville Stories Podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and joining me today on the program are three sisters who grew up in South Africa, but today they are students at Cedarville University. I'm talking about Bryn, Erin, and Reyna Golson. Bryn and her twin sister Reyna are juniors, while Erin is just a few weeks away from completing her freshman year. Bryn and Erin are majoring in international studies, while Reyna is pursuing a degree in communication. We'll talk about their life in South Africa, adjusting to the American culture, and much more. So let me welcome Bryn, Erin, and Reyna to what will be a very lively conversation on the Cedarville Stories Podcast. Hey, it's great to have you in studio today. My first time to get to meet you, and before we started recording, we had a good conversation. It was fun. You guys are very lively, energetic. Our guests are in store for a great program, I really believe. So before we get to the heart of your story, I'm curious because you guys grew up in South Africa.
That's correct.
How did you find Cedarville, and why did you pick Cedarville? Who wants to take that first question?
I don't mind.
Go for it, Ray.
Go ahead, Reyna.
So our dad taught at a school down in Florida for a while, for about 6 or 7 years before we moved overseas. So he was a music professor there. And we were around faculty and we were campus brats. And so we ran around and got to know a lot of the faculty
They
there.
put up with us very kindly.
Yeah,
I
they
understand.
did. Yeah. And so we moved overseas, and unfortunately that school closed. And so a couple of the faculty came up here. One of
To
which,
Cedarville?
Yeah, to Cedarville. So
To be faculty members?
yeah, so
Okay,
Dr. DeWitt in the psychology department.
Okay.
We went to church with her, and my dad and her went on missions trips, and she just was a good friend of ours, still is.
She's a good friend to everybody.
Yeah, right? She's awesome. But we just sort of kept in contact through that. A couple of our people from our sending church also had come up here, and so we kind of had heard of it. We did a couple dual enrollment classes before we came as freshmen, and then, we sort of just decided.
Had some teammates though who came here, or their kids came to Cedarville like a decade ago, and they spoke really highly of it. And then we had another teammate overseas who had been a graduate in like the mid 80s, and she said Cedarville's fantastic, like you need to go. So
Especially coming from like the missionary world.
Right.
We had heard they'd had such a good like MK program and TCKs and the third culture kids. So that was also something that really drew us to the school.
So I need to pause a little bit. So just for our audience sake, for those watching and listening, so I have Bryn, I have Erin, and I have Reyna. They're the Golson sisters. Hello. It's kind of like a musical group.
We don't dance.
The Golson three. And but so everything you heard about Cedarville before you came, is it true?
oh yeah,
Have you
say
found
so.
it to be?
Oh, yeah.
How have you
Oh,
found it to
yeah.
be true?
they said that there was a huge missionary kid, third culture kid, international just group and like community, and that Cedarville did really, really well at orientating kids from overseas and just from different places. And we found that was absolutely true.
Okay.
That was a big draw for us. They said that Cedarville was really just biblically based and enriched. We had visited some other schools, or at least had seen some other schools that really didn't, I don't know, they were more academic focused, and yeah, we do Bible on the side, but people kept telling us like, Cedarville, you're going to grow. Like, it's fantastic. Like the gospel is just preached right at you.
Another way is like you're just coming in and there's community everywhere, and there's so many different places and interesting places to get plugged in.
Yeah.
And one of the funny things that you always hear on the promotional videos is, "Oh, what's your favorite part of school?" Chapel.
Right.
And I was like, "There's no way. There's no way. Chapel every day, and that's your favorite part." And I got here and someone's like, "What's your favorite part?" Chapel. Chapel's my favorite part.
Why? Why is it?
I just love the idea. It reminds me of the Revelation 7, where you look out and you see the multitude, every tribe, tongue, and nation gather together, singing praise unto the Lamb. And I look out across, we sit in one of the higher waterfalls on the left side, and I just love the picture of looking out. You take your eyes off the stage and you look at your brothers and sisters in Christ and worshiping together, and it's just a glimpse of heaven. And I love that. I just love that part.
But the spiritual focus, which is central to who we are. Without that, we're just like any other school.
Yeah.
But I have to believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you get that biblical integration in your classroom. It's just not chapel where you're being challenged.
Not at all.
So in what other areas of campus life are you being challenged spiritually?
I mean, I would say every single area, like from one-on-ones with friends at Chuck's or Renova, or class. I mean, I will be in a communication class talking about how to write a professional email. And that really, at the face value of it, has nothing to do with scripture. And yet there's constant Christian values being taught of being salt and light and shining the light of Christ through just the words that we say and communicate to others. Just talking to people as we walked between classes and being like, what has the Lord been teaching you this week? Just rather than, oh, the weather is great today or the weather's not great. It's so much deeper than that, because all of us are constantly hearing and being reminded of the gospel.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
also for context purposes for our listeners and viewers, we have international studies, basically international studies degree pursuing, and she was in international studies, but she switched to communications.
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but you do look like you're going to be a good communicator.
Hey, there you go. Perfect.
Handed a degree already. She's done.
Yeah, she could go for a master's degree really soon. Sweet. So let's go back to your childhood growing up in South Africa. Yeah. How did that shape who you are? How did that shape your faith, your perspective in life, and then really the value of family in your life? Because I know family is really central to who you guys are.
Yeah.
Erin.
Oh boy. Well, starting off, it shaped our childhood. I mean, when you imagine as a missionary kid, you imagine that everything is different. But for us growing up in South Africa, that was pretty much all we knew. So that was home. We went to school, maybe in a different way than the Americans, like those who are American raised, but everything else was the same for us as a childhood. And in terms of family, that's one of my favorite soapboxes to step onto, because when you don't have your grandparents and your uncles and aunts around you all the time, we became like such a strong unit, us five, parents, and our parents put such a high value on that of making sure we had strong communication and always saying, I'm sorry and I love you. And I cannot talk much more about how well our parents did with that. And also because we went with a missionary team, we went to go join a nonprofit that was already there, and to go help support them and support a church that was already there. Those team members, those other missionaries became our aunts and uncles and became our surrogate grandparents, things like that, where we got cousins and we gained family that was over there. And in terms of faith, you see the Lord work in ways that are so unexpected. You would never think that he would work in a way like that. And then you just become, okay, Lord, we don't know how this is going to work out. We don't know how we're going to get there. Even in our going to South Africa, we were given a grant by a group of businessmen who laid down money and said, all right, you go and live off of this as long as you can. And what do you mean? Like, how? We don't deserve this at all.
Nope,
and yet the Lord so graciously, absolutely, it's so abnormal for that to happen. And yet the Lord so graciously just laid that in front of us, and we were able to live off of it for 4 or 5 years and then continue with fundraising. So he works in such odd ways sometimes. And you look back, and one of the things that our family is really good at doing, and our parents are really good at encouraging us in, is, all right, let's look back and see how the Lord has been faithful through all of this time. All right, let's sit together as a family and recount the ways we didn't think this was going to happen. Boom, the Lord provided. We didn't think this was going to be possible. The Lord made a way. And just being able to sit together, and even as a bonding experience and just a way to glorify the Lord through that, to look back and say, he's carried us through everything. Amen.
That's a very wise response to the question. And what I was thinking when you were saying this is like, you guys got that lesson. You guys understand the importance of looking back and seeing the faithfulness of God. The Israelites didn't. So you're so much further advanced. So in South Africa, what was your mission? What was your family there for? What was her purpose?
Bryn, you want to take this?
Yeah. So we originally went over with the intention to start a Christian radio station.
Really?
My mother had been trained in that in college. My dad was a music professor, music guy, just really saw the sort of need that South Africa had for there to be like Christian teaching and music and just sort of evangelism through the radio. Yeah. Radio is big over there in South Africa. And there's only like a couple radio stations that you can get nationwide, maybe like 3 or 4, I'd say. And some of those are in different languages. So maybe let's say whittle it down to like 3 English speaking like radio stations. Maybe one of them is evangelical.
And because radio is so important over there, because of how rural a lot of South Africa still is.
Yeah.
You don't have smartphones. I mean, still brick phones, flip phones, things like that. But the common denominator across all the boards, people still have radio access instead of having YouTube, television, Wi-Fi, radio is still the main forum.
So we originally went there. We were like Erin said, we were given this grant literally in the space of a phone call. We went from not funded at all to fully funded, and we moved in 5 months? Something crazy like that. Like sold everything and moved.
Yeah.
And so we went there. We're like, radio station, rah, rah, rah. And then the government shut it down. They were like,
they said they weren't accepting any more applications for radio stations, turned the lights off, closed the door, and said,
goodbye.
Figure something else out.
So what happened?
So
What's
we were
next?
like, oh my word, what are we going to do? So we kind of floundered for a little bit, not going to lie.
Continual vacation?
Literally, we were like, why are we here? And
Also, part of the reason we had moved there as well was because there had been a recent church plant there. So there was a missionary family who's been there 30, 40 years. And they had recently done a church plant. And so they were just needing some help with that. They were going through some health difficulties. And the Lord had just made it very clear that we could also step into that as well. So we sort of moved our focus to the church plant, but also we're like, we have all this. I mean, we have microphones, we have lights, we have
all the equipment,
all
everything.
the equipment.
There had been a Christian radio station in the U.S. that had shut down and had basically sent our father stacks and stacks and stacks of, I think, CDs or recordings or digital recordings at the time.
All like the files.
Of all of their recordings that they could
Programming?
use. Yeah,
all of
and
it.
it sat, and we were like, what are we supposed to do with it now? But we also went to join, when was it that Knysna Hope was founded? The nonprofit.
A couple of years ago, probably 10,
Yeah.
10 or
So
9
we
years
also
ago.
went there to help found a nonprofit called Knysna Hope.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Knysna, the name of the town that we were in was called
Knysna
Knysna Hope.
Is that what your parents are doing now? Or
Yeah.
did the radio ever come?
So not really. So it's kind of
online.
there. It's online.
Yeah, so
it's
Dad
not
has
The
a
a radio
government
station.
never opened it back
Yeah,
up.
they were like, yeah, door is permanently closed now, and the lights are permanently switched off. So too bad, so sad.
So
But digital.
it's
Digital.
digital.
It's
So it's
digital.
online, and it runs constantly with the power outages that the government does throughout. It's like rolling blackouts, basically.
Sure.
So, it's just they shut it off for 8-10 hours a week or hours a day, and you never quite know when it's going to turn on or off.
Called load shedding.
Yeah.
Every South
worst.
African hates it. I think the most power we've had off, like the longest amount of time, I think was 14 hours in one day.
15 hours a day.
Yeah.
So with the digital radio, that's kind of like on the side then, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the-
So
Yes.
now, because that's sort of on the side, or at least was forced to be on the side, our
Yeah.
parents were like, okay, what do we do? Now we looked at our family and we're like, hey, what are we good at? The 3 kids are in the public school. This is your mission field now. You get to be in the public school. You get to be the white American who doesn't know the language right now. And you get to be there and you get to be the light and salt. Mom, she realized that she was really, really good at teaching others like computer skills. So she got in with sort of a different nonprofit and then later switched on to our own nonprofit, Knysna Hope. And she teaches computer skills to all these like women mostly who were denied like good education 20, 30 years ago. And all they really want to become is some type of like desk clerk. Like that's one of the biggest dream jobs there.
It's a stable job. It's good pay.
yeah.
And they come from the slums, basically. And she starts with, all right, guys, this is a mouse. This is a keyboard. Here's how to operate those. And then she takes them through a 12-week course of Excel and Microsoft spreadsheets and Word documents and how to build a resume. But then the trade-off is you sit for a 2-hour lesson, but you also get a 30-minute Bible lesson of who is God, why are we here, what is creation, things like that. And
I've never lived in South Africa.
That's okay.
The closest I lived to South Africa would be Southern Ohio or maybe St. Louis, Missouri. So not the South. So
You're
not very
almost
close.
there. You're almost there.
What's the culture like
Oh
in
my
South
goodness.
Africa?
Can I take this one?
Oh yeah.
I'm a
Bryn.
nerd for South African culture. Oh my goodness.
That's what your
Okay.
sister said too.
I'm a history major, so like I love it. Anyway,
Tell me.
so South Africa is made up of like 11 official languages. So not even just dialects, but like official languages. There's 11 of them. And so it's just a vast, the nickname of South Africa is like the Rainbow Nation for a reason, because there's tons of different skin colors, languages, tribes, kind of cultures that are all sort of in this like weird hodgepodge. So there's 3 main, I guess, skin tones, you could say. There's the black skin tone, which is like the tribal. So Xhosa, Zulu.
Is that prominent? Is that the dominant one?
Yes,
so
that's
they
dominant.
originated from the 2 tribes. So the Khoikhoi and the San, then intermarried and became the Khoisan, which is what one of the tribes now known as the Xhosa.
Okay.
So then there's the colored group of people, which I know in the States is a very like bad term, but in South Africa, it's an actual people group. So their results.
And it's embraced.
Yes,
If
they
you
call
walked
themselves
up to
that.
someone and said, hey, what are you? They go, I'm a colored. I'm a proud colored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a totally different term.
They come from so like when settlers came, so like white settlers came from Europe, or like, for instance, like Dutch ones specifically, they intermarried with like the local tribes. And so like hundreds of years later, there's this people group called the Coloreds. And so they speak Afrikaans, but they have a different dialect. Sometimes like they'll have like green eyes or like lighter skin, and it's amazing.
And then there's a mix from them when the Indonesian, Malaysian slaves were brought over in the slave trade to Africa. And then those people intermarried with the Dutch settlers, and then those people intermarried. So there's just such variety.
And white people are 8% minority.
8%.
So we were the minority. It wasn't like we were one in, the entire town and everybody looked at us. There's other African missionaries who have to
look at
deal
her.
with that.
Yeah.
I know, right?
She's blonde, oh my word,
Oh, I look weird.
And you're kind of blondish, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm the abnormal one of the family. But
She's the blonde sheep.
Not the black sheep.
No, the blonde
I
sheep.
like that. That's good.
But we were like one of 40 in a class, a one white person of 40 in a class. And so it was something to get used to, but the thing that they focused more on was our accents and where we came from.
How long
It
did
takes
it take
years,
for you guys to get
a decade maybe.
embraced?
I would say for us children going in, because we were in constant contact with our friends, with our classmates, and the twins started in grade 3. I started in grade 2 at the public school there. So I was from grade 2 to grade 7, and then grade 8 through 12. I was with a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
So in a 2 or 3 years, or even less than that, we were buddies. But for our parents, it took a longer time because they only saw people at like the South African PTA meetings or when there was events going on. So the South African people hold you at arm's length for a good amount of time.
Okay.
But once you're in and you're welcomed in and you prove that you're actually there for a significant period of time, then you're in.
your family?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go back to the culture. How different is the culture there compared to what you've experienced here in Southwest
Oh my
Ohio?
word, very.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Erin.
Go ahead.
So the culture back home is very much of one of just lingering. Like you just linger together. There's something called a kerel is the word in Afrikaans, which means you go over to someone's house and you just be
Just
there.
kind of be.
For a long time?
Often meals together, 4 or 5 hours plus. It is considered a disrespect to you as a guest if you come over to someone's house and they've started the wood fire, like to grill or to braai, as we would call it, before you get there. Because it's considered an honor to be brought into the food making process. So we come to the U.S. and the food's ready and the silverware's
you
on the
get
table.
there.
And I'm like, why are you so fast? What happened?
You're out the door in an hour.
Yeah, that was something interesting coming over. But it's definitely one of just being together and just enjoying each other's company. Lots of singing, lots of singing. Definitely. Like I have distinct memories of going down the school, the passages in high school, and people would singing together, just old tribal songs or like community songs, things like that. So it's definitely one of just of togetherness.
Just the broad expanse of things here too. And I think for us, we grew up in a small town.
How big? How big a town?
It's like 75,000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
it grew quite a bit after COVID.
And is it kind of modern or is it really
It's a
rustic?
tourist town. It's sort of in between. It's a weird in between. So it's like this huge tourist town. So like one hill will have like these multi-million-dollar mansions and like Lamborghinis, and the other side will just have slums. And then there's like the middle town in between because we've got like these cool views.
We were in the middle town. So.
We were in the
That's not
middle.
like America.
No, but a lot of the time too, like if we say we're from Knysna to South Africans, most people know where it is
vacationed there.
because it's like a vacation spot. It's like here for like Myrtle Beach or Charleston in South Carolina. Like that's sort of what people think. Hilton Head is sort of what we got compared to. So it wasn't like we were in the bush in huts or anything, but it's just different. I mean, we had 2 grocery
we were by the
stores
mountains, so-
and just the selection of things. I remember one of my first times back in the U.S. after we had recently moved. I mean,
Walmart.
we graduated
Oh, my word.
3 days before. We graduated 3 days, and then that didn't make sense. We graduated
3 days later.
3 days later, we got on a plane with all of our stuff, and Bryn and I moved to the U.S. And one of the first days back, we went to Walmart just to pick up some stuff. And I remember
my
crying
word.
in the pickle aisle because I couldn't find the pickles.
You just wandered.
And I
You-
just wandered and wandered and wandered because it was just so large, so bright. There's so many people, so many selections. Once I found
Many
the pickles,
options.
what do I choose? I just want pickles. I don't know all
What,
the
a
variety.
dill
of
pickle, a
things.
sweet pickle?
Yeah,
Kosher
like,
pickle.
why?
Kosher.
Why are there so many? And so I
'Cause
just
it's
remember.
America.
I
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
You would be surprised if you asked a missionary family, have you ever cried in a grocery store in the U.S.? How many people will say yes?
Is
A
that
lot
common?
of them.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And
You're
that's
so
because-
overwhelmed.
Yeah,
There's just so
Just
much
selection
stuff.
and how big everything is and amount sizes and just variety. And you're like, I know my little town. I know what I get. I know where it is. I know the people in
Yeah.
there. And you come to the U.S. and you're like,
We could learn. We could be better as Americans to have less opportunities, less variety. Because I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think we'd probably feel more grateful for what we have.
Oh yeah.
Is that what you guys experience?
And you're not distracted by much.
Yeah.
I think because there's only like 3 different cereals that you can choose
You
from.
have one option.
You get in and get out, and the going to the grocery store is not to find all the varieties of things. It's to see how many people I can talk to in the grocery store and grab the couple things that I need.
Oh, interesting.
And then not get distracted by all the variety. It's just to see people and to have fun while you're just shopping.
And that goes back to the community.
Oh yeah. And one big thing that we're grateful for is like clean water. It sounds dorky, but we could not drink out of the taps over there.
No.
It was espresso colored.
It was brown.
Yeah.
For a long time, my dad would have his tea every morning, and he would boil the water and then like drink it. And we were like, oh, it's fine. Like, he's fine. He was sick for like 2 years, and we were like, what is going on? He wasn't boiling it enough to kill like the bacteria and the germs. Yeah. And so you get here and you can just turn on that tap and it's beautiful. Like, it's just like colorless and it doesn't smell weird.
Also electricity all the time is pretty
Electricity all the time is so nice.
But yeah.
So electricity in South Africa, is that because of the rolling blackouts that you just couldn't trust it?
They sell it up to like other southern countries.
And then they would basically sell it, the corrupt government officials would sell it to other people.
Malawi,
other countries. Yeah,
Zimbabwe.
Malawi, Botswana, and Zimbabwe.
And it's coal-based, and so they just sell the coal and then realize, oh, wait, we don't have enough coal for our country, so let's just turn off all their lights and call it a day.
So I'm going to go back. Bryn, you mentioned about 11 languages. How many languages can you guys speak?
Only Afrikaans. Only Afrikaans. It's like kind of the Dutch language. You learned it in the schools. So it's like the very Dutch and German based. We learned a couple words here and there, like koza, but like there was no one to formally teach us.
Yeah, because of the region that we were in South Africa, we were in obviously the southernmost tip of South Africa. And there was, because of the region we were in, we were taught Afrikaans in school. So in our high school, from grade 10 upward, all of our classes were taught in both languages.
At the same
so I took
time.
maths. We all took maths, and I took like physics and biology and things in both Afrikaans and English.
They'll switch halfway.
The professor would just one sentence in this language, one sentence in the other, kind of thing, which is pretty fun. But if we were in the eastern part of South Africa, we would be being taught Zulu, and the other place we might have been taught Xhosa. So it just depends on where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our town too is predominantly English. If we would have moved 30 minutes up north in the mountains, it would have mainly been Afrikaans.
Yeah.
Where if the grocery store clerk, talks to you, what language will come out first? And our town would mainly be English
because it's so
30
touristy.
minutes away is Afrikaans or Xhosa.
So let's talk about. We've been talking about culture. So you guys have been here in the United States for
almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years for us.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
1 year, almost 1 year for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've experienced our culture. What would you say has been the biggest adjustment to the American culture? And then the second part of that question is, at what point or when did you feel like you're at home here in the United States? What kind of event led you to think that?
For me, as far as like the biggest adjustment, so Reyna and I moved, we were 18, we lived with our grandparents, and then we worked full time. So we had to save up and come to be able to afford our first semester here at Cedarville. And so we just worked full time at Chick-fil-A actually.
In Beaver Creek?
No, sir. This was in South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina.
So we didn't really know anyone. We had some extended family there. Our parents had gone. Erin was back in South Africa.
Right. When they all moved over, we worked for a gap year.
Yes.
So we worked for about 9 months because of how the
Okay.
school system is different.
Okay.
So South Carolina, 9 months, and then came up to Cedarville to go to school.
And so for at least me, I think Reyna also, the biggest adjustment was we had just lived this very different, very in some ways unique life. We had all these kind of ideas and like things we were thinking about sort of brimming in our minds. And you come to the States and you work a full-time job and it's like nobody cared about who you were, where you came from, or what you were thinking about, like in any way. We felt like we had so much to say or to contribute or like a different angle, and nobody cared.
And it was more just like a lot of times the people that we interacted with most were ones who just kind of forgot that we had lived that life, and hopefully they wanted to help us move on. And so they were wanting to focus on what is ahead, where we were wanting to talk about was the ministry and what our parents were doing day to day and how we were doing adjusting. And yet
And that was the first couple months.
it was it was ignored. And that was one of the hardest things of being like, I'm not going to forget my life. I don't want to be in the U.S. For me, I was a little bitter.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be back home with my parents and in the life that I knew, but I knew this is where the Lord had me. And yet to not forget my culture and what I had lived for around 8 years. We were there 8 years. But nobody gave me that opportunity. And so that was a hard thing. And it's not pessimist in that for sure.
And it's not to say that like everyone just has to ask us questions. Like that's not, I don't think that's really, I hope that is not what it comes across as. It's more, we felt like we had so much to give from different angles.
You really do.
And it was never really, wasn't cared about.
And nowhere to give it.
Correct.
But to answer your second part of your question of like when we realized this was home, I remember coming, so we moved in December, January, and then we worked about 9 months and then came freshman year. And our parents, thankfully, were able to come and move us from South Carolina here and be part of the international orientation and getting started weekend and just be able to see life of what our lives will look like for the next 4 years. And, for getting started, for those who don't know, getting started here is the first weekend of when all the freshmen come and you get used to the academics and what's expected, but it's also just so fun. And so there's signs everywhere that says welcome home.
Right.
And freshman year I walked into campus and I was like, I don't like that. This is not my home. South Africa is my home.
She has an attitude.
The Lord grew her a lot, man. She had a big attitude.
She's edgy.
Talk about refinement,
So you resisted that.
I resisted that.
It was all her sanctification.
Yeah, the Lord, he definitely did.
Oh, yeah.
But freshman year, I was like, this is not my home. Like, no, thank you. Don't tell me I'm home. This is just school. And then slowly through freshman year, the Lord really worked in me. And I realized that this was the place, and still is, the place where I would probably call home the most, other than South Africa. That's, my childhood home. Bryn and I were there 8 years. Our family's been there 11. And so that is a big part of our lives. And yet here, this is the place that this sounds so weird, but I don't share with anybody else. In South Africa, that's my parents' home.
But me.
Now. But you, Bryn.
But me.
For 21 years.
Do you guys still room together?
We do.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
22 years now. Yeah.
I haven't broken up yet. So
that'll be next year when we graduate.
So do you both feel like, the other two sisters feel like Cedarville is home for you?
Oh yeah.
And why so? What do you love about, one, being here at Cedarville? And obviously it's great to have sisters here as well.
It's nice to know we don't have to like really go anywhere for the next couple of years. We moved houses a lot in Knysna. A lot of people move like countries or towns. We stayed in the same town, but we moved homes a ton. And so we were very used to just sort of packing up our boxes and just going on to the next spot. We've moved houses, 10 times, 12 times, something like that. And so in sort of this way that Cedarville became home was where we were here for a long time. We were in the same community with the same people and the same food. It was just really nice.
And you can
pack your suitcase away,
Over the summer, we live with our grandparents.
Yeah.
So that's their space. If we go home and visit, that's our parents' space. If we go somewhere else, that's somebody else's house. But for us, yes, a unit you share and a dorm
one
you
spot,
share.
that's ours.
But that's where I can put my decorations on the wall, and that's where I can feel like I can go back, close the door, and just fully be me. And it's okay. I don't have to explain myself to her.
And I think my story is a little bit different than the twins in terms of coming over, because I had heard, these months that you're going to be working, that's going to be really hard. The job's going to be hard, but you have Cedarville to look forward to. It's like, okay, I can do that. This is just it's going to be rough for a little bit. And I remember getting to the U.S. and I was like, all right, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to interact with these people. I don't know what to do when I walk into a bank, because it all looks different. Because everything's different and funky, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah. And I remember one night distinctively, my father had already left to go back home to South Africa. My mother was about to leave, and living with my grandparents, octogenarians, and we love them. And I remember, and I was like, okay, Lord, you're gonna have to help me, because I don't want to be here. I have a horrible, nasty, hard attitude right now, and I want to go home. And I know that that's not possible right now. And all I'm doing is thinking about the town that I miss and the people that I love and the language and the culture that I understand. And I don't understand any of this here. Yeah. I look like I do and I sound like I do. I don't know what's going on.
There's a term for missionary kids called hidden immigrants, where a lot of us have grown up somewhere else that we're foreign to as well, but we've become so adapted to that culture that coming back here, we're very out in, fish out of water type thing. And yet we look like we belong. So people don't think to ask, hey, are you doing okay? Like, why are you crying in Walmart? Like, what's going on?
Just going through it.
I just remember that night, the Lord really working in my heart, and Lamentations 3 has just become so special to me. Beyond that, his mercies are new every morning, his faithfulness to all generations. And I was like, all right, the Lord's going to have to carry me through this. And I remember there was just a distinct heart change that night. Yeah. And it was a Saturday night, and the next morning in church, what does the pastor start praying on? Lamentations 3. And the song that they sung was the one that I'd been meditating on that night of just, the Lord's going to have to carry me through.
And he
did. And that time, I look back and I rejoice that I had that time. It was such a time of growth through those working periods. And then being able to come to Cedarville and having like all right, I've worked for this, and I get to enjoy the school that I adore and I love.
You guys bring so much value to our university.
Thank you.
And you really do, with your experiences. You're 21 and 18 maybe? 19. Very young, but very wise and very mature in your faith. And it's really refreshing to sit and talk to you. But that doesn't mean it's easy. No. And so one thing I would think could be hard is, is being here in Cedarville, you just can't really jump on a plane when you want and go home, or jump in a car and drive home.
We wish.
How difficult is it to not be in the presence of your parents? Because although I'm sure you communicate with them regularly.
I called her this morning.
And then how do you communicate with them? But what's it like to not see them?
It's hard. We, like Erin said, we're very, very, very close. Our parents put a ton of emphasis on, this is who you have, and you're going to take care of each other no matter what, because you're a unit, us 5, and we're going to serve the Lord together as a team and as friends. And this is what's going to happen, and this is how it's going to be.
I remember when us 3 would get into one little bicker, like fighting or something. I remember mom and dad being like, these are your sisters. You don't have to like them, but you have to love them, and you have to act like it. So make up and get over it.
Hug each other.
We had to force hugs. Oh my word. But it worked. It worked. So I just remember that. And I remember through it all, we're like, all right, we're sisters and we have to get through this. And it's turned us out for so much better.
And I think the first 9 months that we were here, we called our parents every day. Like I would get off of work, and
the customers were rude again.
Customers were rude. I dropped the drink, whatever. But like it was just, we were still so very reliant on them, and we still are to a certain extent. But I think those 9 months really helped us because communicating with them, because we just built that routine of, okay, sometimes today, like for example, this semester, we won't call every day because they're busy, we're busy. But in those 9 months, we had nothing else to do. And so we did call.
We went to work and we went home.
It helped us not have to build a reliance on them all the time to get through life, but to know that they were there when we need it, and they still are. And if I need to call them and be like, especially in music theory, call my dad and be like, Dad, I don't know what is going on.
What's the circle of fifths again, Dad?
I don't know what this is. I can ask him that when they're awake. And still be able to have that connection rather than be like, hey, I've not talked to you in a month. How are you doing? Like,
and they do a good job of pointing us back to Christ. Ultimately.
Oh yeah.
Of being like, oh, I had a rough day. All right, but how's the
Lord working?
Encourage you? How the Lord refresh you? Yeah. Have you been in the Word? Have you been praying? Have you been talking to people about this? Yeah. So they do a great job of being like, all right, you got to go back to the Lord.
And it is hard every so often. Like I think when we first moved, and even sometimes now, they go to bed at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock our time?
Eastern PM?
Yeah. Okay.
So there's sort of a dead zone in a way where you are sort of not on your own, but you still feel sort of anchorless in a way, because the people that you would call if there was a big emergency are asleep. They're like dead to the world, Yeah. And you can get in contact with them, but they keep their phones on. So like they'll respond, but there's a sort of feeling of like, oh my goodness, bad things happen at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, sure.
And
Time to figure it out.
Time to figure it out.
You guys have learned that really your true anchor is Jesus.
Amen.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
And I think too, one thing that we'll say is we are very abnormal, just in general. But we're very
Don't call us out like that, Reyna. Don't know.
We're very abnormal in the sense of how many times we've been able to go home in the last 3 years.
How often have you gone home?
We've gone twice, 3 times. Bryn and I have gone 3 times.
Once.
Since we've moved?
Since we've moved.
Okay.
Yes, which is very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare.
We have friends who are seniors or who have graduated who have not been home in 5 years because they just haven't been able to. But first year, it was our first Christmas, so we've been gone a year.
Oh, I should bring them back.
And
some other old timer missionaries had talked to our parents and been like, it's important for them to come back for the first Christmas.
Yeah. And supporters and just people who knew our family so graciously donated for us to go home.
Yeah.
And then such a cool God story, which we won't go into completely because it would take like an hour and a half. But our 10-year anniversary was September 3rd, 2023. And I had always had this dream of wanting to go home. I knew that we would be here, looking towards our 10-year anniversary. But I always knew that I wanted to be together for our 10-year mission, 10-year anniversary of being on the field. It's a big milestone.
Sure it is.
And so Bryn and I were here. Erin was still living at home.
And we hadn't seen her in a long time.
Yeah, we hadn't seen her about a year and a
they
half.
missed me.
Oh, maybe a little bit. But we had this pipe dream, and we sort of pay for our own school. And so summer is the time for us to get as much as we can. So it's like school's our reward. Summer is the time.
Summer's time to work.
We grind.
Time to grind.
And so we had this idea, but realistically, just looking at what we were getting paid, it just was not going to look like we were going to go home.
Or even afford
for
anything.
that 10-year anniversary. Well, our best friend who we grew up with, who is also on our missions team, is here with us at school. And so she'd sort of heard about our pipe dream, and yet she was thinking about it, praying about it, talking to her parents. And to make a very long story short, our group of friends who are mainly missionary kids basically were able to pool all their money together. They contacted our church in South Carolina and contacted our family based in there too. And everybody raised money, which would be around $2,500 for both of us.
They covered hotels,
all expenses
flights,
paid, like gas for our best friend's dad to pick us up 6 hours away for the airport. And we
had no idea.
They
surprised us on our birthday. So our birthday is August 30th. They knew that Labor Day weekend was coming up, and they're like, you're leaving in 10 days. Surprise, you're going home to surprise your family.
We had no idea.
So we had no idea.
Didn't know you were coming.
Parents didn't know. She didn't know.
Tell me about the reaction when you guys saw each other.
It was amazing. So Alyssa, who's the best friend, her mother Amy, she and my mother worked together in the computer literacy. Amy's another teacher, Auntie Amy. And she'd been like, Erin, we're going to surprise your mother with something. And my mother had just gone through foot surgery, so she was on her crutches hobbling around. But she was like, just delay her for a little bit, because, we're going to surprise her with something. You and your dad are in on it. Okay, sounds good, Auntie Amy. So, and Erin, could you be the photographer for this? right away, Auntie, anything you need. And so we go down, and it's this little office in the building that we use. It's a multi-use building. And Auntie Amy is like, all right, just put your phone down. Okay, you don't have to video. And I'm like, what's going on? And they come busting in through the door.
We're screaming. They're screaming.
My father's in the middle of eating something and like throws it out of his hand. And
he was in shock.
What just happened?
Tears.
And
we were crying, screaming. Like, we had gone dark because we contact our family quite often. We had decided to go dark for like, I don't know, a couple days, and we had to figure out how we were going to not tip them off when we didn't contact them for more than 24 hours, 40 hours, whatever it is.
They had to be worried.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we made something up. We're like, hey, Mom and Dad, this camp that we normally go to?
Did you lie?
They're at a Christian university.
We maybe lied a little bit.
We've already asked for forgiveness
actually.
for that.
Be convicted. Do you feel the Holy Spirit working?
There's this camp that we go to, the missionary kid camp that we go to every year. And we said, hey, Mom and Dad, listen, they've moved it up this year, and we're not going to have any Wi-Fi, like any cell service at all. I'm so sorry. I love you. We'll contact you in a couple days.
See you soon. I think you said see you soon.
I think I said, huh. And it was amazing. And we took direct flight to Cape Town.
We were there for 7 days. I mean, we only skipped like 2 classes or something because of Memorial Day weekend. But it was just such a gift. Like fantastic. They were not expecting us, and we didn't need to go do touristy things around our town. We just sat and we're just a family for
be together.
7 days. And I mean, we did some homework, but like for the most part, it just we just get to be us, and we get to celebrate.
And the
what
Lord
the Lord's
provided
done
the money to the dollar, like to the dollar.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not surprised.
It was
I know.
Something 0.46 cents, and the Lord provided something 0.46 cents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, we are nearing the end of this.
That's okay.
I mean, you guys could probably fill 2 or 3 podcasts. But
we could talk forever.
Let me see if I can bring us down to 3 final questions. So let's come back to Cedarville. And you mentioned earlier how valuable and influential and helpful the international community has been.
Oh, yes.
How has Cedarville's international community helped you? And then maybe even help other students who are international students.
Go ahead.
So I'm. You guys can focus on the student part, but I'm going to focus on a class that I had called Intercultural Communications with Dr. Charles Elliott. And
We love him.
Great professor.
Oh my word.
I
love
took that
him.
class. Cried.
Never had him. I want
And
to.
you take the class, Bryn. But he was a missionary in Hong Kong, I believe, for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And a way that I had never expected him to help me at all is in the class, they begin talking about missionary kids and third culture kids. And he starts talking about this. And I'm in the back of the class trying not to cry. It felt like I was in therapy. Just the way that he explained it and the way that he was talking, he was identifying emotions that I had for years I did not know how to talk about. Of, as missionary kids, we're always going to be on the margins of every society because we're going to be half of this one, half of that one, never full of anything.
Right.
And he starts talking about this and I was like, oh my word, I felt that, but I've never been able to identify that, or about the fact that, like Bryn was touching on, we have so many experiences to share and know where to share them. But at some point, those have to be compartmentalized for a time and put away to focus on now. And he starts saying that. And it was such a shock to me about how helpful that series in that class was. Well, the whole class was great, but that series in the class was. I remember going up to him afterwards and being like, thank you. You have no idea how much you helped me. And so it just something that's kind of odd because he's American professor, but he could be considered an international because of his extensive teaching experience overseas.
Right.
In just a wonderful way that even that small part of the international community helped me. So
there's a group on campus, which I'll let Bryn talk about a little bit, called Mukapa. Where
she's president.
Yeah, she's president.
President.
I am.
She is.
But it's just a group of missionary kids, or kids who have a desire to go overseas at some point, who are just able to get together and do events and just sit together in chapel, and just be able to travel around Ohio a little bit.
Just love on each other.
It's just such a gift. We were not around a lot of missionary kids growing up.
We were the missionary kids.
We were the missionary kids. We were missionary kids and we were the youth group. That was us.
You were everything.
Yes. We were the Bible study, us three.
And so to be able to come here and realize that, first off, MKs are not special. Like, we're not a better echelon of people than the average American. Like, we're not anybody better than others. But there's just a unique experience that we all have had, and just growing up. And so to be able to come to Cedarville and have 100 plus, 200 plus students who are missionary kids who have had those same unique experiences in Asia, Europe, South America, Africa, wherever. And to not have to explain the question of, where are you from? You're like, well, I was born in Wisconsin, grew up in Florida, lived in South Carolina, lived in South Africa. Like, I don't need to say that because everybody else has that same background. We can just automatically dive in and just... They know.
They get it.
And so it's sweet to be able to share that with people who have not had that same experience here on campus. Like, we're able to get to know a lot of people because of that. But the MK group has just been sweet.
It's been such a gift to have them here and to be a part of that, and hopefully for the next freshman class coming in to be that community for them.
Yeah. I'm gonna synthesize two questions into one. This will be the final question because I know we're out of time. But what does the phrase "home is with the people you love" mean to you today, and how do you see that truth continuing to shape your journey at Cedarville and then beyond?
Go ahead, Bryn.
Thank you.
You haven't spoken for a while.
I know. I can't get a word in edgewise. I'm just kidding. You have to choose where your home is. You have to choose that where your feet are, that's where your home is going to be for now. If you're constantly anguishing, like we did for a little while, oh man, I miss my home. Oh man, I'm not the wrong spot, Lord. Like, I'm not here. This isn't my home. Then you're never really going to be content in pretty much anything.
Right.
You have to choose. Like our parents always say, you have to choose. Home is where your feet are, and home is with the people you love. And that's a choice that you have to make, like consciously. I kind of tease that my home is where my pillow is, really. It's where I go, my pillow goes. I carry her on flights. So like where my
trash bag.
In a trash bag.
I'll call you out in a trash bag.
So wherever I go, my pillow goes with me. And
your pillow is home.
It is home, honestly. In some ways, it is. As far as loved ones, I feel like Erin could take that one better. I think you said that one originally.
As far as loved ones, yeah. Home is where your loved ones are because it doesn't matter in what situation or circumstance scenario you're in.
Yeah.
If the twins are there, then I'm at home. I could be in Timbuktu. If my sisters are there, I'm home.
Oh, yeah.
I could be in Djibouti, Africa. And if mom and dad are there, I'm home. And because home was with our parents, and home will always be with our parents.
Right.
But right now, Cedarville is home because it's where my feet are. It's where my sisters are. And ultimately, it's a kind of a funny phrase, but home is where the Lord is, and the Lord is with you always. So home can be wherever.
And Cedarville's where your heart is too.
Oh,
right now.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me speak to international students who are watching this program, because this podcast is viewed and watched and listened to in 60 different countries.
That's
across the
so
world.
cool.
That's amazing.
It was a worldwide podcast.
word.
But if you are interested in an education like what these young ladies have talked about and being home, I encourage you to look at Cedarville University. Go to Cedarville's website, cedarville.edu, and learn more. Go through our international pages and see really what how we prepare our students, whether they're international or just domestic students, doesn't matter. But we do love on our students, and Cedarville is a great place to get an education from a biblical worldview. So I encourage you to visit cedarville.edu.
Please do.
We're big fans.
Guys, I could talk to you for a long time. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for joining me on the Cedarville Stories
Thank you for having
podcast.
us.
You guys are blessed. Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories Podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. Be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.